Oh,
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this month's virtual potluck with the Yasmin Public Library. Diana is in Peru having a good time, so we are here solo tonight. If you haven't joined us for this program before, we've been doing this every month for over a year now, and we have a theme every month. This month's theme was bowls. The first meeting we have during the month is it's always on a Tuesday, but it's at 7 the first time when we do a cookbook discussion based on the theme. And then the second time, which is tonight, we're doing a cooking class. So tonight's cooking class is we're doing toasted farro grain bowls. It might be pronounced farro. I'm really not sure. Either way, with roasted winter veggies, and we're going to make like a quick vinaigrette to go on them. This recipe is really versatile. As you'll see, I don't have exactly all the ingredients that I thought I had, so I'm going to mix things up a bit. I invite you to do the same if you need to. And you can, like, if you have some other veggies in your fridge and you have room on the pan, you want to toss them on to roast while we're doing this, totally cool. And if you haven't been to one of my classes before, know that we're a very laid back bunch. You're welcome to unmute yourself, ask questions, jump in. If I'm talking too fast, tell me to slow down. If I'm talking too slow, tell me to speed up. It's fine. I'm not, it's very laid back. So if I just put my website in the chat in case anybody's interested. And if you're cooking along with me, we're gonna preheat our ovens to 400.
Ashley, while you're at the oven, I have a question. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming that this is best eaten like fresh right out of the oven kind of a thing, or does it hold up like for a second meal? Should I have the ingredient, or should I have the ingredients, or should I go for it full force?
So I purposely roast extra veggies often. I'll just keep them in the fridge. You can either reheat them. I mean, if you don't care if they get a little soft, you can just reheat them in the microwave. If you want to crisp them back up again, you can like throw them under the broiler real quick. But that way the majority of the cooking is already done and it's fine to just kind of hang out. But it's not difficult to roast them. So if you have time and you'd rather have them fresh, that's totally personal preference. I have broiled broccolini and tomatoes in my fridge right now that I made a couple days ago that I'll probably throw on some of this leftover grain salad tomorrow. So yeah. All right. One important note, farro or farro, whichever you call it, there are different types and they cook at different rates. So the type I have, if you find this, if you go to Trader Joe's, I love this stuff. It cooks in 10 minutes when you boil it, but the back of the package has instructions for boiling, or if you want to simmer it, or if you want to do it in soup. Different brands take different amounts of time, so you're going to pay attention to whatever your particular packaging says. But additionally, I realized I don't have quite enough for this recipe. So I'm going to actually experiment with cooking. Here's another thing. I'm going to say freekeh. It's a smoked green wheat. So this is not gluten-free. I've never cooked with it. I've eaten it. And I figured since I have a little extra grain that I need, I'm going to cook this in a separate container and pot and just see what happens. So I'm going to put 2 different large saucepans on to boil. For the farro, you can just fill, kind of like you're doing pasta. You can have like a good amount of water in there. You want the water to come up a couple inches above your farro. For the instructions that I looked up on this freekeh, which I bought at Yaranoush, is a Middle Eastern market in Elmsford. They have lots of really great grains. There's no instructions. So Bob's Red Mill's website gave me some instructions. This is a cracked, I hope it's cracked. We'll find out. If this fails in my attempt, all about improvising since bowls are very versatile. I have this stuff, which I love keeping these things on hand. It's pre-cooked. You just tear the package a couple inches and you microwave it for 90 seconds. And so this one is organic brown and red rice with chia and kale. This is a really great mix. I do it for side dishes sometimes. So if this experiment doesn't work, we'll supplement with this stuff. It's all about like not being too stressed. You could add rice in there, whatever type of grains you have. Just know that everything cooks a little bit differently. So The freekeh, I need 2.5 cups of water. So that one I'm going to actually measure. And you can throw a little salt in your water, regardless of what type of grain you're doing. Let's see. 2.5. This motion detector sink was like the coolest thing that we've ever got. Comes in very handy unless you have a lot of stuff on your counter, and then it comes on by itself sometimes, but pretty good. So this one's going to take longer to cook than my farro, but I think if you don't have the quick cooking type, I think it's usually around 20 minutes. So we're going to toast the farro first in a dry skillet, which is completely optional. It just adds like a little bit of an extra nutty flavor, which I really like. Completely optional. You can toast all sorts of grains. I'm not going to toast the freekeh because it's already smoked. So I think that will be fine as is. And as far as, do you need something in? Okay. As far as veggies, we're just looking to kind of do things that can be cut at about the same diameter and they're about the same density. I find that squash and Brussels sprouts kind of cook nicely around the same rate. And when I wrote this recipe a couple years ago, I used an acorn squash, but today I'm going to use delicata squash. You can eat the skin on these. You can actually eat the skin on acorn squash, but sometimes you have to cook it a little longer to make it soft enough to eat it. It can be a little iffy, but if you're going to eat the skin on your squash, just go ahead and give it a scrub. And whatever type of squash you're using, you can cut it in half and then thin slices. I'm going to do about a 1/2 inch thick. You could also, like the delicata squash, since it's kind of less round, it'll look nice in rings. So I'm just going to trim off the one edge, and trimming squash is like, I feel like one of the scariest things in the kitchen because they're a little wobbly, but once you get those ends off, it can be a little easier. So I'm going to set it this way and go straight down the middle. If you're into roasted seeds, you can scoop the seeds out and save them in a bowl of water, and just later at some point, you can kind of clean the membranes off. Oh, I'm sorry, let me spotlight my other video. Sorry about that. There we go. So now you can see the overhead also, unless you're watching the replay, then I'm sorry. If you want like an easy way to scoop out seeds, if you have like a grapefruit spoon that's got the little teeth on it, those are really nice to just kind of come in and scoop out. And if I'm going to use the seeds like to roast, I like to just put them in a bowl of water to keep it makes it easier to separate the goop kind of stuff from it. But I feel like I always have good intentions of roasting seeds, and then I don't too often. So whatever type of squash you're using, just going to look for fairly consistently sized slices. I'm going to say about a 1/2 inch thick. Butternut squash is good. That one, the skin is not edible, and that's one of the few shortcuts I'll take from the grocery store. Like I'll buy already peeled butternut squash because I find it very unwieldy to deal with, but it's delicious. So sweet potatoes would also work really well here. If you have extra room in your oven, you can just always throw in an extra tray of veggies. So just cutting these into pieces or slices. My water's almost boiling over there. And I like delicata and acorn squash. They have these nice like scalloped edges that I just think look really pretty, especially when the flesh gets kind of caramelized. And squash and Brussels sprouts work really well together. I have some fennel in the fridge that I considered, if I have room, I might throw a little on there too. It's kind of a good way to clean out your pantry. I'm going to pause for just a minute because my water is almost boiling. And with the freekeh, I read that you should rinse it. So certain types of grains, it could be a little bitter if you don't rinse them. So I'm going to rinse this off. 1 cup. We're going to use 2 cups of grains total. So 2 cups of uncooked grain. You could do whatever type you like. Barley would be another good one. And this, it does smell nice and smoky, but it's just like this green. I am not sure if this is, I think this is cracked. We're gonna find out if it actually cooks up. So I'm just gonna rinse with cold water.
Ashley, could you speak for a minute about cleaning the Brussels sprouts? I feel like I've got a big job ahead of me I should be doing.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be there together. I
Okay.
just trim off the end. I'm gonna put this in here. Let's cover this and turn it down to low to, oh no, does it say to simmer uncovered? Cover and reduce to medium low. Alexa, set a freekeh timer for 20 minutes. Freezer timer is what she heard. Yeah, so I'll do the squash on one baking sheet, the Brussels sprouts on another, just because usually it takes up a little too much room to go all on one. If you overcrowd your baking sheet, they won't really caramelize so much. Sometimes I don't care. I would rather have a little less caramelization and do one less dish. So whatever you're feeling that day. Things that roast up quickly, cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes. Broccolini roasts up really quickly. So sometimes I'll throw those in and I'll even broil them just to get some sort of veggies real quick. So I'm not worrying about putting these in an even layer yet because I'll do that after I do oil, salt, and pepper. But these are just going on one sheet pan. And then we'll move on to the Brussels sprouts. Let's see. It's always interesting juggling the tiny space in here while I'm doing classes, but I'm up for the challenge. All this kind of stuff too, if you compost, you can totally compost. I don't bother rinsing the Brussels sprouts because I peel off the outer layers. You can also buy them like on a stalk. These grow on a big, huge stalk. And I've seen people like roast them on the stalk. I think it takes a lot longer though. And I don't know how practical it is at home to eat it, but it certainly looks impressive. All right, so scooping that stuff out of the way. For the Brussels sprouts, I just trim off the tail end and then you can stand it up. That makes a little like flat surface for it. You can stand it up, slice it right down the center, and then I'll just peel like one layer from the outside off. If there's a lot of little like gray spots, I'll peel a little further. Occasionally you'll find some stuff in there that you move on, you ditch it. I've gotten a couple bad batches of Brussels sprouts in my day, but they're so good, I keep risking it. Actually, one of my favorite things to do with Brussels sprouts is to air fry them, halved like this, and you can air fry them. I can't think offhand of what temperature I use, but you just shake them around with just like a tiniest bit of oil till they get nice and pretty much black and crispy. And then you put them in a bowl with some olive oil, salt and pepper, and a little bit of agave syrup. And that little bit of sweet is just so nice with them. And then if you find like this Brussels sprout's a lot larger than the other ones, I'm gonna cut it in half and then I might cut it in half again so that it will cook about the same rate as the others. The itty bitty Brussels sprouts that Margie had, those ones you might cook them a little bit less. They might get nice and caramelized in less time. So whatever, you just got to kind of keep an eye on them.
Ashley, for the farro, we're not doing anything, right? Because our farro is going to get toasted before we cook it, or are we cooking it now? I'm a little confused.
I'm sorry, that's my fault because I have extra grains today. We're not doing anything with it yet. Yeah, so the veggies are going to roast for about 25 minutes. We're gonna toast the farro, and if you have, if yours cooks in about 20 minutes, should be ready around the same time. Toasting is really quick. We'll do it while the water comes up to a boil. Oh, if you have any fun, not for this particular bowl, although I'm sure you could, if you have any fun, like weird flavored salts, those can be fun to experiment on with roasted veggies too. And I find like sometimes I get gift sets that have like a smoked salt or a, all these different types of salts. And I think roasted veggies or grilled meat is just a really nice way to use them, like a low pressure, like, what roasted broccoli tastes like. Just try a little bit of that seasoning blend on there. Or I have, what I've been doing a lot lately, I have some grill seasoning that I'm working on posting the recipe for that soon. But I made a grill seasoning blend and I just put that on pretty much everything, just like a little olive oil. And it just adds just enough that if you want to also do some sort of like sauce or chimichurri or something, it'll work also with it. But it gives it enough flavor that it's not just like a bland roasted veggie. And then if you can see, I usually just, until I get kind of crowded on my cutting board, I'll cut them in half and take the bottom stem off, and then I'll just peel a bunch of them, then work on another batch. You can also buy these already. I think you can buy them already halved if you want. Generally speaking, if you buy something that's already prepped to some degree, it'll cost more. So like if you're looking to save money, buying it as close to the whole ingredient as possible is going to help you there. Like with shrimp, that's an example I use a lot. I'll buy it already just still frozen, and I'll devein it myself or peel it myself. It takes a little longer, but if you have the time and you don't mind, that's one way to help save. And when it comes to seafood, a lot of times what you find at the seafood counter has already been frozen. So it's fresher sometimes to buy it still frozen than if you were to buy it from the seafood counter. Just gonna move these over. Okay, we're almost there on these. Well, at least I am. I'm not sure. Hopefully you guys your trimming's going all right. This is where usually I'd have like music on. I don't know if you guys listen to music while you're cooking. We have one of those Sonos speakers, so I can tell my Alexa to play something and it'll play it either just in the kitchen or in the whole house. That's kind of fun. Has anybody eaten anything interesting lately? I'd love to hear. I'm always curious if anybody's like discovered anything new, either out or from, that you've made or bought.
I had something really cool that I had in a restaurant. The lotus flower is so beautiful that floats on the surface.
Yeah.
So the roots underneath are not only edible, but they're gorgeous.
They are, yeah.
They're ugly on the outside, but once you peel them and cut, and I can't believe how, I used it in soup and it retains its crunch, its texture, even days later, it doesn't get mushy at all. So, and it's
that's awesome.
Nice addition, yeah.
I've eaten it at restaurants, but I don't think I've ever actually worked with it. That's really interesting. Did you cook it in the broth for your soup?
I did. It's like the only thing that you can't have raw, apparently. You do need to cook it, but no matter how long it cooks, it just can't be overcooked.
That's handy for when you're busy.
Exactly. It's food, right?
Oh, that's great. I know, that's so funny. Some ingredients that are like, there's some stipulations with them, like rhubarb. I had a rhubarb plant at my in-laws' house, and every year my father-in-law used to say, "Oh, it's got these big, beautiful leaves. What are we gonna do with the leaves?" I'm like, you can't eat the leaves. They're poisonous. And every year, no. Oh yeah, that's right. And the next year, oh, we've got all these big, beautiful leaves. What are we gonna do with them? I said, serve them to your enemies because they're poisonous. You can't have them. But it's so funny how things that look very similar, like rhubarb leaves kind of look like a Swiss chard or something, but That's an interesting ingredient too. I like it a lot. I recently, this is my interesting thing that I've made lately. I had some frozen rhubarb in my freezer from my garden, and there's a Persian stew made with rhubarb. I got it out of a cookbook, but it's made with rhubarb and chicken, and you cook it. And I think it has fennel. That's why I have some fennel in the fridge. You cook it on the stovetop, and then you put it in a casserole dish, and you layer rhubarb on top of it. I did like a fun pattern. It's so interesting. It's really, really different. All right. Once your vegetables are ready, and if I'm going faster than you, don't worry. If I'm going slower than you can go ahead and pop them in the oven. Just gonna season them with a little olive oil, salt, and pepper. You can measure it if you want. I feel like you can kind of just eyeball. If you're really looking for a measurement, I would say like 1 to 2 tablespoons per sheet pan of olive oil. You could also use avocado oil. You could use any kind of high heat cooking oil, peanut oil, and then salt and pepper. My default measurement is like half a teaspoon of salt, kosher salt, like the thicker kind, the chunkier kind, and then maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. If you're measuring, again, it's not too easy to go overboard on roasted veggies like this. So I just seasoned them in olive oil, and I'm just going to toss them with my hands just to kind of coat everything a little and put it in a single layer. And then the edges will get nice and caramelized. We'll flip the squash at one point, and then if the Brussels sprouts look like they're cooked enough, we'll go ahead and take those out. All right, so these are gonna go in the oven for 20 minutes. Alexa, set a vegetable timer for 20 minutes.
Vegetable timing. 20 minutes.
All right, now we're gonna go with a dry skillet. I'm using a small one just because I only have half the amount of farro, but you can use whatever. You just kind of want like one layer down there. Dry skillet. What do I have? I have a little. We're gonna go with it. I don't like dirtying extra dishes when I don't have to, so it's a little deep, but we're gonna put it over medium high heat and just gonna keep stirring this until it starts smelling fragrant. And while that's back there, you can turn on your pot of water to cook your farro also. So I think, okay. I'm very curious to see how this other grain is gonna work out too. I'm gonna get a big bowl while that's happening. So I made this recipe for a different brand of farro, and their cooking instructions, I believe, were 20 minutes to in boiling water like that. The other way on these, if you want to simmer it, that's supposed to kind of absorb all of the liquid. So instead of this, we're kind of cooking it like pasta where we're dropping it in a lot of boiling water. You can combine, this one says combine a 1/4 cup of farro and 2/3 of a cup of water or broth in a saucepan with a lid, bring it to a boil, and then reduce it to low and let it cook for 10 minutes. So I think I did this once and I still had to drain it. So I was like, I don't know why that made much of a difference. If it was like rice and it kind of absorbed all the liquid, I feel like that would be a little better. So with the toasting, just go until you'll start to see a little bit of color. Maybe it depends how dark your farro is. But we don't have any oil or anything like that in the pan. And you'll kind of, just like when you're toasting nuts, you'll kind of start to smell, like it'll smell like toasted grains when it's in there. While I'm waiting for that, our next month's theme is eggs. And I've been having a lot of fun getting different books about eggs from the library. If you haven't done it recently, or you haven't been to the library recently, you can search online, and it'll search the whole Westchester Library catalog, and you can have the books sent directly to whatever your local library is. So even if like the Ossining Library has it and you live in Rye, you can have the book sent there, and then they'll text you or email you, or you can get a phone call, I think, if you want. You can't get a carrier pigeon or an owl, but I wouldn't put it past them. They like all about letting you know that your book's are ready. So I'm just going to show you. Mine's still, it's not looking much different. It's just brown. It doesn't really have much of a scent yet. The other thing we're going to experiment with, I don't know what type of eggs everybody wants to put on their bowls. If you're going to put eggs on your bowls, you can do a fried egg. I did a soft boiled egg for the picture that was on the recipe card, and I really liked the runny yolk with it. But I've been making soft boiled eggs and hard boiled eggs in my Instant Pot for so long that I haven't done it on the stovetop in a while. So I tested it out the other day, and I wasn't thrilled. It was like a little more cooked than I wanted. And so I asked on Instagram, and I got all these different people that had different tips for how to get the perfect hard soft boiled egg. So we're going to try one of the methods today. We're going to try Elisa, who is a realtor in the Mount Kisco area. She said, this never fails. Boil your water, put the eggs in for 7 minutes with a slotted spoon, take them out and into an ice bath. The middle will be soft. You can add 30 seconds if you like. I think eggs are one of those things that are a little tricky. It's like sometimes it just depends on the day or the batch of eggs, the size of your eggs. Just like some days baking things, you need to bake the cookies an extra minute, but with eggs, you can't really tell until they're already cooked. So we're going to experiment with that method if you'd like a runny egg. When I do them in the Instant Pot, I'll let you know just in case if any of you are Instant Pot fans. Let's see. I found that my old Instant Pot cooked a little slower than my current one. So my current one, I have an Instant Pot Ultra. I do high pressure 5 minutes for soft boiled, and then a quick release method where you press the vent, have the steam come out, and then you put them into cold water or an ice bath. And hard cooked from my Instant Pot is like 8 minutes. I feel like my old Instant Pot cooked at a different rate. So you can always do like a maiden voyage and test it out if you want. So I'm getting a little fragrance here. I'm going to turn my heat off on my Faro skillet that it's toasting in, just so it doesn't cook too much more, because if it was starting to get dark and my water wasn't ready yet, I'd transfer it into a bowl so it doesn't like burn in the skillet. But I think this is going to be okay since my water is almost boiling. I'm going to go ahead, if you're boiling an egg, soft or hard, and go ahead and put some water in a saucepan. My method for hard-boiled eggs on the stovetop, for anybody who, if you want a hard-boiled egg, is I put the eggs in the saucepan, and then I cover them by like an inch with cold water, like eggs straight out of the fridge, right into the cold water. Then I turn it on, and as soon as it comes up to like a rolling boil, so you're really getting a lot of bubbles, once it comes up to a big boil, I close it, turn the heat off, and set a timer for 10 minutes. And for me, that usually works for hard cooked eggs. Let's see. Gonna move this over here, using all the burners today. My grandma used to put she used to put a little white vinegar in her water when she boils eggs, and she said that it helped the shells come off more easily. I've seen a million tricks, and I don't think any of them work consistently, but it doesn't hurt to throw a splash of white vinegar in there. I've also heard baking soda can help. I do know if you get like farm fresh eggs, really fresh eggs tend to be harder to peel. So that can be a little frustrating sometimes. Instant Pot, like pressure cooking them is nice. I find overall they tend to peel more easily, but just when you get confident with it, I feel like eggs are like, no, we're gonna keep you guessing. All right, so my water over here. I don't know that I've ever boiled so many things at once in my kitchen. I'd love to hear if anybody else has a certain type of eggs that they're going for, or if no eggs, you could put like if you had leftover grilled chicken or something, or tofu, that would be good on here. Or even like, honestly, a can of like chickpeas, drained and rinsed, put that right on top. That would be nice, because then you have a little bit of the dressing that'll go on it. All right, it's so close to boiling. So once that does boil, my farro is gonna take 10 minutes. So I'll set a timer for that. And one thing I do find, if you're gonna do grains, like farro for salad, like a cold salad, you can rinse it under cold water after it's done cooking. And then I always like to just kind of pick through. Sometimes there's like a really dark piece and it's extra hard. So it's like, I don't know if it's just something that gets in with the grains, or it's just like not quite, it's too hard to chew through. So I usually pick through them.
Your freezer timer is done.
Alexa, stop. All right, Alexa, set a Freaka timer for 5 minutes.
Ashley, are we trying to time our grain with what our oven is reading, basically?
If you want to, if it works that way, yes. If you need, so we're gonna make a vinaigrette next, and that is the grains will go in warm. So as long as your grains stay warm. I just set the 5-minute timer because the instructions for the Freaka said to let it sit covered for 5 minutes after it's done to kind of steam. All right, I'm gonna go in with my farro into the boiling water. So it should take about 10 or 12 minutes for mine, but again, look at your package instructions. Alexa, set a farro timer for 10 minutes. Ah, she said farro, so maybe, but she called Freaka freezer. So I don't know. There's too many, a lot of words here. All right, let's just see. Okay. If you missed the bowls cookbook discussion from a couple weeks ago, the lib guide on the Ossining Library's website has the PDF that I put together. There's a ton of really great books. I think the recording of the session is up too, if you're curious about any of the books that people shared. All right, while that's cooking, I'm going to do the vinaigrette. So capers. Let me turn this down a little. Sometimes the saucepan for the farro can get a little like bubbly, kind of foamy up on top. So you want to lower the heat down, usually like medium low. But if it starts, like if you see the bubbles start coming up, you can either lift it up off the heat for a moment until it has a chance to settle down. I've heard that like putting a metal spoon in there kind of helps the bubbles subside, gives them something to grab onto. So I really like capers. I buy them from the wholesale club. So I have this like giant jar of them. And I use the brine in a lot of things too. Like if you need to make a vinaigrette or something, it's a nice addition for that. So I'm just kind of draining the extra liquid and I'm measuring 1/4 cup. My son actually really likes capers too. He's 10 and he's pretty adventurous with a lot of things. Some things not at all, but capers he's into. So yeah, sometimes if I'm making a dressing or something and it needs a little bit, just like something like a flavor punch, I'll just grab some brine from capers and put it in there. So I'm going to put these on the chopping board and just kind of roughly chop them and then add them into a big bowl. So once the grains are cooked and drained, if there's extra liquid, depending on your cooking method, it'll go right into the warm grains will go into the vinaigrette, and that'll kind of help. It'll like kind of permeate the grains. It's really, really tasty that way. I take out a little bit on the side just so we can have a little extra to drizzle on top of the veggies and stuff if we want. But just a rough chop. They're pretty small, so just breaks them up a little bit. And I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard. I'm giving my grains a stir over here. If you ever need to cool down your grains like really quickly, because you want to use them in a salad or something more room temperature, you can, after they're drained, you put them out on a sheet pan, and that'll help. Like they'll be in a smaller layer, and that'll help the heat kind of escape a little quicker. So 1/4 cup of Dijon. And this, if you have, you could also have this vinaigrette, you could stash it in the fridge and use it if you didn't want to dress everything right away. Let's see if do I have enough Dijon? This is the like, I need to go grocery shopping class, I think, this week. But I do have another type of mustard in case I run out here. All right, so I'm gonna go about half Dijon and half, I've got a stone ground mustard that's just, it's got like mustard seeds in it. So I'm gonna mix that in there. So again, I feel like these type of meals should be, you know, use what's in your pantry. Don't fret and go to the store if you don't have to. Alexa, stop. All right. Let's see, I'm gonna bring this frika over here. We'll see what it looks like together. Will it work? Can't say I'm super confident in it, but we will find out. It could end up being my new favorite grain, you never know. Okay, I've had it before, I've just never cooked it. Right, so here's what that looks like. Kind of looks like rice. And so it does have like a little bit of extra liquid in here. So I might strain it when I put it in the salad, but it says to cook it till it's tender, but how do we know that it's tender? Let's taste. So this does have like a chew to it, kind of like farro does. And it's smoky. So this is a smoked green wheat variety. Oh, that's nice. Okay. This experiment went well. It could have gone wrong. You never know.
You
Another
were
tip.
very daring.
What's up?
You were very daring.
I know. I was like, you know what? Today's the day. I'm just going to wing it during a live class. That sounds like a great idea for 2222. Like, we're going to make 2 grains. Yeah, why not? I feel like, I thought if anything, it kind of helps to show that you don't have to be super scared in the kitchen. Like, try something new. If it doesn't work out, like, we didn't ruin anything. Like I said, I keep stuff like this around so that if I burned the farro and it turned out awful, like, we'll just use this. It's fine. Like, you won't know if you don't try it. And I don't know. I feel like it's an adventure. We're living on the edge here. All right. So with the capers, just looking at my egg water, it's not quite boiling yet. Capers and Dijon. We're going to also add a 1/4 cup of chopped parsley. I have some not quite chopped, but roughly chopped left over from something last week. Just going to chop it a little more finely. And again, I'm not measuring super exactly, but you can. If you want different types of herbs, you could, I feel like you could add a little bit of tarragon, maybe. Not, I wouldn't do a full like 1/4 cup of tarragon, but I think that would be a nice herb for this. Maybe mixed with a little like green onion or chives. Okay. And with, oh, sorry, I was starting to say with grains, if you're making a batch of something already, you could make a double batch. So say a double batch of this frika. let it cool down and freeze it. And then you already have like cooked, already made grains, and it'll make life easier another day. I mean, you don't have to freeze it. You could refrigerate it and then you can make something completely different, throw a different sauce or not, or just have it plain, toss some herbs in with it. And then you have a totally different base for something later in the week, but you already did the work versus cooking twice. I've been trying to be smarter about like doing stuff like that since now everybody's, well, me and my husband are both home for lunch. So it used to be just me home for lunch, but now, you know, just having kind of options to pull from, I find is really helpful. Or if I'm roasting veggies, I'll just roast a little extra and then I have that left over also. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of white wine vinegar. You could use red wine vinegar if you want. Apple cider vinegar would probably be all right. Maybe go a little bit less on that because sometimes that can be a little overpowering. All right, and then we're gonna, I'm gonna put some black pepper in there. I'm not gonna add any salt because the capers are really salty. If it happens to need salt later, you can always add more. So just some cracks of black pepper, and then I'm gonna stream in while whisking a 1/2 cup of olive oil. That I'm actually gonna measure this time. If you wanted to use extra virgin olive oil here, you can, because it's not getting cooked. I always find it kind of a waste to cook things in extra virgin olive oil. But I mean, by all means, use whatever you have. Avocado oil would work here. I'm not a fan of canola oil, but it just, to me, it has kind of an odd taste. Okay. So I'm gonna stream this and whisk it in. And just doing this slowly with the Dijon in there, it helps it emulsify and get kind of creamy. You can totally do this in a food processor if you wanted to like have everything really finely chopped and stream the oil in, and it'd be more of a smooth one. This is kind of like a little more rustic, I would say. And doing stuff like this too, I'm always like, oh, it could be fun to swap out the capers for sun-dried tomatoes, or oh, Alexa, stop. Our vegetable timer is done. Oh, Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. All right, lots of timers are done. We're gonna check, I'm gonna check the farro first. I'm just gonna kind of grab a little bit out of here, let it cool off for a second. And I'm just gonna, kind of like pasta, you want it to have a little bit of a bite. I think mine needs another, like 3 minutes probably. Alexa, set a farro timer for 3 minutes. All right, I'm not panicking about our vegetables because the egg water is boiling, and I'm gonna try Elisa's method. We're gonna use a slotted spoon, drop them in for 7 minutes. And she said, leave it at a boil. If it's boiling too much, you can turn it down. Okay, slotted spoon. Can I juggle all these things? I think so. Okay. It's also the cold eggs will bring down the temperature of the water a little bit. I'm gonna do 4. All right, Alexa, set an egg timer for 7 minutes. All right. Gonna check on our veggies. It's entirely possible that they will be cooked enough already, but we're gonna take a peek. So I have my squash here. Brussels sprouts. So I'm just going to kind of stir everything with a spatula. So, because the Brussels sprouts, the bottoms are getting nice and caramelized. That's what I like. And if you want to see if they're cooked through, you can take a fork or the tip of a knife and just try to pierce through. And if it goes in pretty easily, it's cooked through. So my Brussels sprouts are done. I'm not going to put those back in the oven. The squash isn't super caramelized on the bottom. It does look like it's cooked though. I put a knife in there, it goes through easily and comes out. So the squash is cooked enough. I do like it a little brown, so I'm gonna put my broiler on and just broil it until my one of the other timers goes off. We'll see how it looks. But it's cooked enough now, so it's okay. Figure we got enough timers going on, and I'm very happy for this robot lady in my kitchen that lets me set like 18 timers at once. It's always nice. All right, so our bowl with the vinaigrette. I'm gonna use a spoon and take out about, how much do I want to take out? A third of a cup of this. We're gonna toss the grains in the rest of it, but I want to take some out.
The Farrah timer is done.
Okay, Alexa, stop. So I'm gonna measure out a third of a cup. So you don't want it to be, it's salty because of the capers. We don't want it to be like too potent, but also I like drizzling it on top of some of the veggies too. Okay. Cut that out. Gonna go back in and taste my farro to see if it's like an al dente pasta with a little bite. And if you like it softer, you can absolutely cook it a little bit longer. But this type of grain does have a little bit more of a bite to it. Oh yeah. All right, so I'm gonna get my strainer and drain the farro. My eggs are boiling rapidly, so I just turned it down. Here's my bigger strainer. My bigger strainer is out of commission, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna dump a little of this water off. And then I'm gonna use my sieve and just, because we're putting the grains in hot. So I'm just gonna use the sieve, drain about as much as I can and put it right into this giant bowl of vinaigrette.
Ashley, can I ask you if you were
Yeah.
planning, if like I'm gonna make this last for a couple of meals,
Mhm.
would you not do this step? Would you just do what you're gonna have tonight with the dressing?
I personally would still toss this with the dressing just because I feel like it soaks it in nicely.
Gotcha.
And I like that. If you want to go like a little more shy on the amount that you toss with it, like reserve like a half cup or something, you can maybe do that if that makes you like, just in case.
Right. Thank you.
Yep. All right. I was gonna do a separate bowl for the frika and a separate one for the farro in case I didn't like how it turned out, but I'm gonna mix them together because I think it's gonna be good. And then once the eggs are done, Elisa's method was ice bath. So I'm gonna put a couple ice cubes in a bowl. And then just as soon as they're ready, I'll do it with like cold water. And soft boiled eggs you can, and hard and medium cooked eggs, you can make in advance, chill them, and you can put them in the fridge. And then when you want to use them later, leave the shells on. I usually will write an S with like a Sharpie or a pen or something, just so I know it's not a raw egg in my fridge. And then you can gently peel it and then just hold it in your hand and run it under warm water just to kind of warm it a little bit. And that works really nicely. So the center is still jammy, but you don't have to, again, cooking the stuff in advance. So you're not doing too much at the last. So you're not cooking 18 grains at once as I'm doing today. But I feel that this was a good experiment, and maybe I'll start making some recipes for some frika type dishes. All right. Most of that water is absorbed, so I'm not concerned about a little extra water in there. All right. Turn that down because it's boiling quite briskly. And then I'm gonna turn my broiler off, but I'm just gonna leave the squash in there because I'm running out of counter space. So again, hot grains in the dressing, and I'm just tossing them so they're nice and coated. What if this is like the best what if farro and freekeh are like the best combination together? If it didn't need to steam for 5 minutes in the container first, I was gonna try to time it so that I could cook them together. I've done that with pasta for pasta salad before. So I think having different shapes is kind of fun actually. So I took like, I boiled my water, and one of the pastas took like 15 minutes and one took 11. So I'd set a 15-minute timer for one, and then I'd set a timer to start the other so that they'd be done at the same time. And that was like, it was a great way to use up partial boxes of pasta and have them all cook. I had to do a little math, but it was okay. So I'm just tasting this. I think that it does need a little salt.
Your egg timer is done.
Egg timer is done. So we're gonna go.
Your egg timer is
Alexa,
done.
stop. Alexa, stop, please. Into the ice bath. And then I usually, if I'm doing something with an ice bath, I'll like continue to pour some cold water on it just to really, this is to help stop the centers from cooking any further. The ice will start to melt from the heat of the eggs. So I'm gonna just let a stream of cold water go over this. I'm just gonna kind of dump out some that's gotten warmed. Cold water again. If it's cold outside, you could just pop this bowl right outside. All right, I appreciate you guys all sticking with me while I'm doing like extra grains. All right, so I think this needs a little bit more salt. Remember, I didn't put any in because of the capers. I didn't want it to be too salty because you can't really, it's harder to come back from too salty than to be not salty enough. I throw in a little more pepper also. I found when I made this the first time also, that last round of a little extra salt and pepper really kind of helps it come alive a little bit. All right. And then if you have something like radishes, I thought that was a nice kind of pop of color for the top of the bowls. So I just trim, and you can cut them in any shapes you like. I also like putting radish slices or matchsticks on deviled eggs. And my favorite is in the, is it like spring? I feel like the farmers markets, you can get those really pretty like French radishes, like they're purple or white or light pink. These red ones, the really bright red ones, are usually a little spicier. So I just have some thin slices of radish. But what I'm also gonna do, because again, I'm using the things that I have in my kitchen. I've been growing some sprouts, and my second tier of my grower is radish sprouts. So I'm gonna put some radish sprouts because the color is gorgeous and they are like a little spicy. So I'm gonna put some of those on my bowls too. So to serve, does anybody have any questions before I plate this up? Sorry, it was a little wild. It's a wild ride with my amount of groceries today, but I feel like we stuck with it. All right, this is a bowl for my son. I'm gonna let him pick what he wants in his bowl because he's sometimes a little pickier than other times. I feel like this would also be really good actually with like canned tuna, like some oil packed tuna on top or something like that. So I'm gonna scoop out some grains. I'm gonna do the 2 bowls for me and my husband first. And then I'm just gonna kind of arrange the different roasted veggies on. Do some Brussels sprouts. Yeah, I have leftover in the fridge from a class I know Sherry's taken with me before. I did a roasted sweet potato and black bean taco class a few days ago, and those would be, I mean, that would be a lot of grains, potatoes and farro. But I mean, I feel like it would be tasty. Maybe I'd go less grains and then add some of that. Throw on some of these. They didn't get super caramelized today, but that's all right. And again, you can eat the skin on these. You don't have to, but you certainly can. I realized the year that I posted this recipe on my website, it was in February, and it's National Heart Health Month. So whole grains are actually very good. I'm not a nutritionist, but whole grains are very good for your heart health. So it's a good time of year to make this type of thing. And you could do in the summer, you could do like a chilled grain bowl. So just rinse your grains with cold water and drain them. And I think that would be, you could have some like cold vegetables on top, or cucumbers, avocados, stuff like that. Maybe a little feta. All right, I'm gonna do some radishes, and we're gonna do the moment of truth with our eggs. The ones I did the other day they were fine. They were a little, they weren't very jammy. Like I like a little loose yolk. I think a fried egg would be delicious on here too. All right. There's also a lot of methods for peeling eggs so that they don't stick, but I'm just gonna kind of tap lightly because again, it's soft boiled. I don't want to crack too hard. The white should be set and the yolk should be nice and jammy. So I just kind of tap and roll all around. And then I'm gonna peel off. And then I always rinse after I peel, even if it looks like I got all of the eggshells, just because sometimes you didn't get it all. And then I'm always the person that gets the eggshell. If there's gonna be an eggshell in somebody's dish, that's usually me. Ooh, my white's breaking a little. Okay, not bad, not bad. All right, and then I'm just gonna pat it dry gently. And then I don't want to leak the egg yolk onto my cutting board. So I'm going to very gently, I'm going to put it down in here. I'm going to cut it. Let's see. Ooh, she's beautiful. I'm going to bring this up for the replay viewers because you won't have the two cameras, but oh, and I dumped all my radishes in there. Nice jammy yolk. And when that mixes in with the contents of the bowl, I think it'll be really good. So egg goes on there. I'm gonna throw, like I said, some of these radish sprouts. I have a whole post on like 3 different methods for growing sprouts at home. If you're interested, I did this tower style garden. I did a mason jar, and I did the bag. There's like a bag you can grow sprouts in if anybody's interested in that. And then the only other thing that I would do is take like a little extra drizzle of this vinaigrette and put it right over the top of the veggies if you'd like. If you wanted to do a little like fresh cracked pepper on top of the egg, that would be lovely. But that is all there is to it. I mean, I said this was more complicated, I feel like, than most of my recipes that I do in a class. And then I made it more complicated with the second grain. But I think the 2 grains is kind of nice. And if you have partial bags of grains, it might be a good way to use them up. So like I said, next month, eggs is the theme. Our cookbook discussion is on Tuesday, March 8th at 7 p.m. Feel free to bring a cookbook. You can check it out from the library, or if you have a cookbook or just want to talk about eggs. We won't be soft boiling or hard boiling eggs. I'm trying to think of what, like I'd like to do a quiche. It's a little hard in an hour to actually have you try it, but we'll see. Maybe a frittata or something. And then the next cooking class is Tuesday, March 22nd at 6 p.m. Again, to be determined. I'm not sure yet which recipe we're going to make, but anybody have any last questions and anything? If you do make this, I hope you let me know what you think of it. The link is in the PDF with the recipes, but I'll put the link here also. That's the recipe on my website. Anytime you make one of my recipes, if you leave a comment with a rating on it, it helps other people find my posts on my website. So that's always appreciated. But and I love seeing your pictures on social media. I'm at Big Flavors, and I hope you enjoy this lovely, crazy, rainy day while Diana's in Peru, hopefully soaking up the sun.
Thank you so much. This was terrific.
Thank you. I hope you enjoy it. I felt like it was something different, right? Like a little different.
That
type of
was great.
recipe.
I love that tip at the end about slicing the egg in the bowl so you don't lose any of the yolk. That was yeah, thank
Because
you.
I mean, what's more sad than cutting like, can you imagine then all this gorgeous yolk would be all over my cutting board instead of in my plate?
Do you ever roast frozen Brussels sprouts?
You know, I haven't done it with frozen. My thought with roasting something that's frozen is when it thaws, it's gonna get a little wet, just from the ice thawing. So if you could adequately dry it, like pat it dry nicely, it's worth trying. It might roast okay and just not get like caramelized, if that's okay with you. But I think usually it's like the moisture is kind of the enemy of caramelization. So if anything's too wet, it's not going to get nice and brown.
So Ashley, I
Yeah.
roasted frozen Brussels sprouts just now
Oh.
for this.
How'd it go?
So the outside is really nice and crispy.
Okay.
Side has is a little smushier,
Okay.
but like just a bit softer.
Okay.
But they roasted. They did roast. I've done it frequently previously.
That's good to know.
I don't like soft cooked eggs, so my Brussels sprouts will probably have that similar texture,
Okay.
so kind of like a little bit of hardness to the squishiness.
Yeah.
But mine will be in the vegetable rather than with the egg. So it
Yeah.
worked. I mean, it
Oh, I'm
worked.
so glad. My
So-
only experience with frozen Brussels sprouts was I had sprained my ankle years ago, and my aunt gave me a bag of frozen Brussels sprouts to put on my ankle. That's the only time I've ever used them. But yeah, it's good to know that it does work.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm gonna stop the recording. Thank you everyone for coming. It's always lovely cooking with you.
Thank you, Margie. This was a fun play date.